Hi guys, so welcome to this new video where I'm going to talk about how to avoid feeling broke as a healthcare worker without sacrificing your well-being. We are going to go through bank work, agency work, what are the pros and cons, is it worth it, some side hustles as well, ideas, and the idea of passive income. So make sure you stick around until the end. I'd like to mention first about the NHS pay banding. So as of 2024, an entry-level nurse, which is band 5, earns about 30k a year before tax. So after tax, that's about £1,800 net outside of London, and in central London up to £2,250 net with the high cost area earnings. And then if we look at the monthly expenses in the UK and in London as of 2025, on average in the UK a rent would be about £700 and £1,500 extra for average monthly expenses such as bills, transportations, groceries, or the essentials. These values in London, for example for rent alone, that would be at least £1,000 just on rent, bringing a total value of monthly conservatively at least around £2,000 to £2,500 a month. So if you're a band 5 earning 2.3 and your monthly expenses are between 2 and 2.5, then you haven't got much disposable income every month. And these are really scary numbers. That means you have no wiggle room for any financial crisis, any financial emergencies, such as dental care, such as a washing machine that breaks down, or car issues as well. So we need to find ways to either spend less or make more, or both. Okay, so first up we're going to talk about how to spend less. And I think the main thing is to really understand on a monthly basis what you spend your money on. So that's the first thing you need to do. So go back to your bank statements and find out how much you spent on what. Once you found that out, I like to use a spreadsheet nerd here. I like to use a spreadsheet to find out from my different incomes, from my different jobs, how much money I make. And this is the spreadsheet I use. So we've got my 3 different jobs over here. So you got my job A, job B, job C, and my different hourly rates depending on the jobs. Job C is my current business. So for example, for February, I didn't make any money for that job. And this is the amount from the other different jobs here. And I like to put my tax code in there just to really have an estimate of what my net pay would be for that month for these different jobs. So for example, for February 2025, my net pay was £3,000 for my job A, about £400 for my job B. So that gives me a total net of about £3,500 for that month. And I normally keep in that corner here my monthly expenses, so my credit bill, which is about between 900 and 1,100 a month. Direct debit, so that's any subscriptions, rent and bills as well. So that would be my monthly total expense. So I add all that up and then subtract with my total net, and this is what my disposable income would be. And then from there, I then decide how much investment I want to put for that month, how much I want to put in my emergency fund, and the rest in cash or whatever I want to use. And for those who are not sure what an emergency fund is, so an emergency fund is 2 to 3 months of essential spendings. So for me, it will be about keeping £5,000 in case of emergencies. And I know it can seem like a big number, but the aim is to avoid using credit cards and getting into debt, because it's extremely hard to get out of debt, especially because of the interest rates that credit cards have, which can be up to 30%. And the idea is that if you have an emergency, you don't have to spend your money into that credit card, but use that emergency fund. And there's lots of resources nowadays about how to go about personal finance. And Rich Habits is an amazing podcast that I've been listening to. I'm going to put a link in the description below so you guys can have a look. They're 2 American guys, so not all of it is directly applicable to the UK, but they are very good resources for personal finance. If there are any other podcasts or YouTube channels that you guys follow or watch regularly, please let us know in the comments below. So now you have a good understanding about where your money goes and where you can cut down on. We're going to look at different ways of making more money and the pros and cons for each. But first, if you could hit the like and subscribe button, it would really help me grow and get credibility and keep helping you guys. So how do we make more money as a healthcare worker? Well, lots of jobs do provide the opportunity to do bank work and extra weekends. So that's usually the easiest thing to do to get extra cash or extra monies at the end of each month. And it's usually in the hospital that you work at already. So it's really easy to find jobs and you feel hopefully very comfortable working in the same hospital, but it doesn't have to be in the same hospital. It might be in a different hospital, in a private hospital, let's say, where work can be a bit different and you work in different teams as well. So that could also help with your learning depending on what you look for. The cons for that is weekend and shift leaders are normally quite good at picking out who's quite keen to do bank work, and sometimes it can feel really hard to say no when they keep asking you. So always listen to your body and your health as well. I get a lot of questions about locum work. So I worked as a locum for quite a while through different agencies in London. There are definitely pros and cons there. If you register with an agency, they are going to do everything and anything to find you jobs because they're paid through fees, or I guess you could call it a commission. They will go and call different hospitals or trusts to find you a role. They will keep sending you roles as well, so email you directly with roles that you find interesting. And once they've found you a role, what usually happens is that you have a call with whoever's put that job into advert. I mean, it's not interviewing, it's mostly what your experience has been so far, just so they have an understanding of how quickly you can basically hit the ground running. There are unfortunately lots of cons to locum work nowadays. So first of all, in London, it's very limited what roles you will get. So usually if in London you find a role, it probably will be because they're trying to fill gaps. So there will be roles that no one really wants, or there will be very generic roles, especially in winter pressure, such as A&E or wards. I'm more talking here about my physiotherapy experience. If it's not in London, the distance will be quite an issue as well. So usually it will be roles that are quite outside of London. Again, because most permanent roles are filled up and the competitive role or the good roles are already taken by permanent staff. The second thing that's really important to know is that rates are capped nowadays in London and more globally in the NHS. And so for a band 6, I would say umbrella rate, as they call it in agencies, will be around £28 an hour. But that accounts for all the agency fees in there. The agency will take about between 10 to 15% of that. So actually, you probably will get £23 an hour, and that's before tax as well. So once you have the £24, you get all the tax and national insurance, pay, and that's also if you don't contribute to a pension scheme as well. So basically, you end up with an actual hourly rate net of £16. So that's really important to know. On top of that, you don't get annual leave, you don't get sick leave. So yeah, quite a few cons, but the flexibility is amazing. You can decide to not work if you don't want to work. You're obviously not going to get paid. It really depends on what you want from your life in that moment. So now we're going to talk about side hustles. Side hustles are other ways to make more money. It can be anything. There are lots of options, and that could be dog walking, that could be TaskRabbit in London, and that could be Uber driving, delivery. So all these kind of jobs can get you a little bit more extras every month. And I think the main thing that restrict people from taking on these side hustles is probably the stigma of working in those roles. I suppose it's very easy for someone who has gone through uni, who is already working, let's say even as a band 6 senior level in the NHS, to say I'm not going to do delivery driving. But it's finding a way to put that shame aside and really think about your financial future. Because through these different roles, you also are going to learn so many new skills, whether it's marketing skills, accounting, whether it's content creation, social media marketing. All these skills are very important rather than just developing your skills in your 9 to 5 job. You can also open your own business and go down the route of entrepreneurship, which is also very exciting. And a few cons of that is you'll need to find yourself work. I'm taking the example of Uber. So with the rating, you might not get the clients as you want, so it might be a bit harder initially. And then I think motivation is a big one here. After a 9 to 5 week, doing more work on the weekends can be draining, I'm not gonna lie. But if it's only for 2 or 3 hours, even on Saturday morning or Sunday morning, that will make a huge difference to your pay at the end of each month. So now we're going to talk about the idea of passive income. So passive income is a type of unearned income that is acquired with little to no labor to earn or maintain. And a very simple example is a cash ISA account. So at 4.5 interest tax-free rate, at the moment, you can open a savings account. If you put £500 now, if you don't add anything at all throughout the year, after a year, it will be valued at £522.50. And that is usually paid monthly depending on your bank. We're also going to talk now about investing in stocks and shares ISA. Basically companies that you can buy shares for. So let's say Apple, you can essentially buy a share of that company, which will help the company develop and put that money into their investments. And as it grows, the value of the company also grows. It also grows the share that you have bought. An ISA is essentially tax-free allowance that you have. And in the UK, as of May 2025, the ISA allowance is £20,000 a year. That means you can invest in any of your ISAs up to £20,000 tax-free. So any earnings that you make from these investments will be completely tax-free. So I do want to say that I'm not a financial advisor, so please do your research before taking any action. And this is for education purposes only, and this is not official advice. But if you're interested to know more about this, let me know and I can make a separate video about it. So at the end of the day, the idea is really diversifying the income streams that you have and finding really something that you enjoy. It helps with breaking down the routine, I find, of work, and it doesn't feel like work anymore. So for example, for myself, I currently have 3 jobs. So I currently have a full-time job in the NHS, which I do condensed work, so 4 days a week. So that's about 7:30 to 5:30. I work Tuesday to Fridays in that role. On Mondays, I work on my coaching business and YouTube channel, and on weekends, ad hocly, I do bank work in a private hospital, which pays quite good rates. I do find that having that switch between jobs feels like it's not really work anymore, because I do get a break from each jobs, if that makes sense. So in summary, there are 2 ways to not feel as broke. So spending less, but also making more. Doing a combination of both can be really helpful. So using a budgeting tool well to cut down on unnecessary expenses is a good idea, but also finding ways of creating more income streams with things that you enjoy. If this was helpful, please make sure that you like the video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I post every month, and I really hope to see you in the next video. On that note, see you next time.